One of my subs, Rihanna, wanted to know how I learned what I learned or how I know what I know. And that's a long process, probably starting from probably from birth, but as far as this phase of what I show now and what I display now, probably going back some 30 years. But what I want to share in this particular phase or this particular subject is about how I came to the realization of women, but through understanding female nature. And a pivotal book for me understanding female nature is the Lucifer Principle. And I think it was printed back in, I want to say 94 or 95. It may have been printed later than that. I'm not sure. I have to check. And it's something that not only the ladies have asked me, but also the men have asked me. How can they take the steps to the realization that I have had over the last 20 some odd years of understanding female nature from its core? And like I said, the Lucifer Principle as a book wasn't intended as a book on female nature per se, but how nature progresses from its creation of life all the way up to where we are now. And Lucifer Principle does a very good job of that, but it focuses in on recreation or procreation, which is the purview of women, purview of the female. So I was thinking about taking snippets of the Lucifer Principle and expounding upon it. And after further review, I think it would be better that I start from scratch or try to start from scratch and take the ladies through the whole book, or at least as much as I can. Because there's sometimes if you leave out pieces in the book, especially for novices, they'll get the lesson and then they may not get the lesson. And the thing is, since we're teaching or we're trying to teach or trying to take people through the process, it might not be a good idea to leave things out. So I'm going to try it this way. If it gets too bogged down, then I'll start taking pieces. But for this first, I say few episodes, or maybe even first 10 episodes or so, I'm going to try to play portions of the book because I found the audio book and add my commentary. But for this first part, it's the introduction of the Lucifer Principle so that you can understand who Howard Bloom is and what the Lucifer Principle is about. So sit back. It's a very short segment. I don't know how long the segments will be for each part. Hopefully, no more than 10 or 15 minutes of playtime because the book is about 12 hours. So I would say about 10 or 15 minutes of playtime. Hopefully, some of the non-discriminative parts I can kind of cut out and kind of cut it down. But non-discriminative parts, but the important parts, play 10 or 15 minutes of playtime and give some commentary behind it so that as I can understand it or as I see it, and highlight some things for you guys to consider and take you to the process of discovery like I had with this book. With that, we're going to get into it, and I'm going to go ahead and play the introduction of the Lucifer Principle. Enjoy. And on the next segment, we'll get into the particulars, or we'll get into teaching.
The author of this book is an intellectual, originally trained in science, who decided to avoid the limitations of an academic career. Instead of conducting laboratory experiments and competing for federal grant dollars, he put his interest in mass human behavior to work by playing a key role in the careers of rock stars such as Michael Jackson and John Cougar Mellencamp. Meanwhile, he continued to read widely and do what all scientists as intellectuals should do, attempt to understand and explain the nature of the world around him. His experience, at the center of our culture's myth-making machinery, may have taught him more about human nature than a university career. Perhaps we should regard him as an anthropologist who has spent many years observing a strange tribe, us. In the course of his inquiry, Howard Bloom became convinced that evolution could explain the fundamentals of human nature and the broad sweep of human history. He is not alone. It is no longer heretical to study our own species as one of evolution's creations, and many books are appearing on the subject. The Lucifer Principle, however, does not merely report on the rapid developments that are taking place within academia. Howard Bloom has his own vision of evolution and human nature that many scientific authorities would dispute. He is a heretic among former heretics. The bone of contention is the organismic nature of human society. Thomas Hobbes and many others of his time regarded individuals as the cells and organs of a giant social organism, a leviathan, which is but an artificial man, though of greater stature and strength than the natural, for whose protection and defense it was intended. Today this idea is regarded as no more than a fanciful metaphor. Evolution is thought to produce individuals who are designed to relentlessly pursue their own reproductive success. Society is merely the byproduct of individual striving and should not be regarded as an organism in its own right. Even individuals can be decomposed into selfish genes whose only purpose is to replicate themselves. It is a mark of Howard Bloom's independence of thought that he resisted the extreme reductionism that pervades modern evolutionary biology. He believes that the Leviathan, or society as an organism, is not a fanciful metaphor, but an actual product of evolution. The Darwinian struggle for existence has taken place among societies as well as among individuals within societies. We do strive as individuals, but we are also part of something larger than ourselves, with a complex physiology and mental life that we carry out but only dimly understand. That is the vision of evolution and human behavior found in the Lucifer Principle, and at the moment, it can be found nowhere else. When Howard Bloom wrote the Lucifer Principle, he studied numerous developments taking place within the halls of academe, but was unaware of others. Evolution is increasingly being studied as a process that operates on a hierarchy of units. Even individual organisms are higher-level units, composed of parts that were themselves free-living organisms in the distant past. Truly organismic societies have evolved in insects, and even some recently discovered mammal species. As for ourselves, human society may turn out to be far more organismic than the vast majority of evolutionary biologists imagined only a few years ago. These discoveries are unfolding within the scientific community, and many of them have been anticipated by Bloom. Scientists and other academicians might find themselves treading a path forged by an outsider. As a scientist who has been developing a hierarchical view of evolution from within academia, I have learned from Howard Bloom and value him as a fellow traveler. I do not agree with everything he says, and I sometimes blush at the way he says it, not with the reserve of a scientist, but with the brashness of a mass media denizen. Of course, that only makes the book more fun for the average reader. Many of Howard Bloom's ideas must be passed through the scientific verification machine before they can be accepted. Until then, your motto for the Lucifer Principle should be not read it and believe, but read it and think. David Sloan Wilson, Binghamton, New York. The Lucifer Principle is a complex of natural rules, each working together to weave a fabric that sometimes frightens and appalls us. Every one of the threads in that tapestry is fascinating, but the big picture is more astonishing still. At its heart, the Lucifer Principle looks something like this. The nature scientists uncover has crafted our viler impulses into us. In fact, these impulses are a part of the process she uses to create. Lucifer is the dark side of cosmic fecundity, the cutting blade of the sculptor's knife. Nature does not abhor evil. She embraces it. She uses it to build. With it, she moves the human world to greater heights of organization, intricacy, and power. Death, destruction, and fury do not disturb the mother of our world. They are merely parts of her plan. Only we are outraged by the Lucifer Principle's consequences, and we have every right to be. For we are casualties of nature's callous indifference to life, pawns who suffer and die to live out her schemes. One result? From our best qualities come our worst. From our urge to pull together comes our tendency to tear each other apart. From our devotion to a higher good comes our propensity to the foulest atrocities. From our commitment to ideals comes our excuse to hate. Since the beginning of history, we have been blinded by evil's ability to don a selfless disguise. We have failed to see that our finest qualities often lead us to the actions we most abhor: murder, torture, genocide, and war. For millennia, men and women have looked at the ruins of their lost homes and at the precious dead whom they will never see alive again, then have asked that spears be turned to pruning hooks and that mankind be granted the gift of peace. But prayers are not enough. To dismantle the curse that Mother Nature has built into us, we need a new way of looking at man, a new way of reshaping our destiny. The Lucifer principle takes fresh data from a variety of sciences and shapes them into a perceptual lens, a tool with which to reinterpret the human experience. It attempts to offer a very different approach to the anatomy of the social organism. In the process, the Lucifer principle contends that evil is woven into our most basic biological fabric. This argument echoes a very old one. St. Paul proposed it when he put forth the doctrine of original sin. Thomas Hobbes resurrected it when he called the lot of man brutish and nasty. Anthropologist Raymond Dart brought it to the fore again when he interpreted fossil remains in Africa as evidence that man is a killer ape. Old as it is, the concept has often had revolutionary implications. It has been the thread on which men like Hobbes and St. Paul have hung dramatic new visions of the world. I've attempted to employ the subject of man's inborn evil, as have those who turned to the subject in the past, to offer up a restructuring of the way we see the business of being human. I've taken the conclusions of cutting-edge sciences, ethology, biopsychology, psychoneuroimmunology, and the study of complex adaptive systems, among others, to suggest a new way of looking at culture, civilization, and the mysterious emotions of those who live inside the social beast. The goal is to open the path toward a new sociology, one that escapes the narrow boundaries of Durkheimian, Weberian, and Marxist concepts, theories that have proven invaluable to the study of mass human behavior while simultaneously entrapping it in orthodoxy. We must build a picture of the human soul that works, not a romantic vision that nature will take us in her arms and save us from ourselves, but a recognition that the enemy is within us, and that nature has placed it there. We need to stare directly into nature's bloody face and realize that she has saddled us with evil for a reason, and we must understand that reason to outwit her. For Lucifer is almost everything men like Milton imagined him to be. He is ambitious, an organizer, a force reaching out vigorously to master even the stars of heaven. But he is not a demon separate from nature's benevolence. He is a part of the creative force itself. Lucifer, in fact, is Mother Nature's alter ego.